Okay, let me host. Good afternoon, Doc. How are you? No, I'm alive and kicking, brother. No jet lag. Circumstances didn't allow me to join the others there in CPT. Yeah. Okay, no, it's not a problem. I think even my profile is not as important as what I'd like to share here. I think first and foremost, let me thank Titus for the awesome presentation that he's just given. He's given me half a job in the sense that usually when people come after lunch, you either get blamed for them sleeping or you get the credit for them being awake. So in this case, I don't know where Titus stands, but I've been awake the entire time. So I'm excited to be here. So essentially what we're going to be discussing is the road less traveled, the road less taken, which is entrepreneurship within the environmental health sector, space industry, or whatever other synonym you can actually think of. Because I don't have much time, we're going to take this ride in this bullet train. Or rather, based on the image that's on the screen, perhaps we can pretend we are in my Lamborghini on the tar. I'm the only one as the driver who's comfortable because I can't share my space. The rest of you, unfortunately, have to share the passenger seat. All 515 of you, or now 517 of you, have to unfortunately share that particular space. So on the screen, you can see that we'll be talking about money. So people's minds will actually light up a bit and it's more lighthearted. A lot of the guys touched on academic type subjects, which I can applaud based on how they delivered and based on the amount of data and knowledge that they shared with us. So this is more lighthearted, except it is also serious because it's an opportunity for us to open our minds to new frontiers and to also open our minds to what's possible out there. Because the truth, okay, the screen on my side is not responding, Chairperson. May I please have control in terms of controlling the pace? Let's try and confirm. Ah, perfect. So the truth is only a handful of existing businesses are owned by environmental health practitioners. I made this false statement quite intentionally because actually the truth is environmental health practitioners actually have businesses that are running and operating. The only problem is that the majority of them are actually not within the environmental health space. It's not a problem for their pocket, obviously, if they are profitable businesses, if they are passive businesses, if there are things that they are running on the side and are able to win with. The only issue is that with this wide scope that we have as environmental health, it has given or created loopholes or bottlenecks for other people who are non-specialists or people who aren't environmental health practitioners to actually come in and dominate the space. So right now, despite all of this, unfortunately, the sectors that we can dominate in have been monopolized. They are dominated by people who aren't environmental health practitioners. This then ripples because people within tertiary institutions come out in droves and numbers with qualifications. They are graduates. But where exactly can these graduates provide value and service if us as environmental health practitioners are not at the forefront of providing these particular opportunities for them? A tertiary institution is doing its job. It's teaching, it's capacitating, it's empowering, and allowing people to actually go out there and flourish. But unfortunately, when they get into the market, then they are faced with challenges. So this presentation, fortunately, the 500 people that are here play on a wide spectrum in terms of age groups and in terms of tertiary levels, in terms of experience as well. Some are students, some are unemployed, some are the working class, and then others are probably retired but are trying to figure out exactly what do they do with their pension funds. And therefore, with this opportunity, they'll be able to then open their minds and take advantage of what is ahead. Unfortunately, on my screen, there's a point where I can't see the last 2 points within the presentation, but for the sake of time, I will move. The reason the status quo is the way it is because of the myths that exist in business. Some of the myths are that business is easy, but the truth is business is not. If it was easy, all of us would be doing it. All of us within environmental health would have our little corner and would be dominating in our little area of expertise. But unfortunately, it's not. When you look at the current stats, over 30 to 50% of the business landscape, new businesses that get started, they fail within the first 2 years. When you go further, within the first 5 years, then the number goes higher to about 50%. So the market is saturated, but not by environmental health practitioners. The market is dominated not by environmental health practitioners, and that makes the barrier to entry actually quite difficult. People are not understanding that there's certain principles that you gain from being a business owner that you can then trickle down within the workplace that you are actually working in, and the amount of value that you create allows you to work in unison with government to provide that particular value and service. Another myth is that one needs funds to get started. But one forgets that as an environmental health practitioner, you already have the knowledge base, you already have the skill set, you've been exposed to communities and problems firsthand through your experiential learning or work integrated learning. And therefore, you have a network of people that can introduce you to the right people, people that can mentor you, people that can empower you, and people that can help shape the trajectory of your business that you're actually going towards. The impetus then becomes on you to actually start on that idea, shape that idea, and then act. A lot of the business opportunities that exist just require intellectual levels of thinking. They just require knowledge. They just require a certain skill set and a certain level of expertise that you can bring forth and then present to the overall market based on the problem that you are solving. So startup capital sometimes is not that necessary. A strategy that people can use in this regard is actually to take their invoice or quotation to a client and say, I'll only start service once I receive 50% of the funds within my account. That way, you cover yourself as far as overheads are concerned, and you cover yourself as far as running the service and providing value to the client. Just an idea. Take it, don't take it. It's up to you. Another myth, I need a business plan to get started. Not true at all. A plan is just that. A plan is just that. There is a saying, of course, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail, but not necessarily by means of a business plan. You'll have to have that overarching plan that will guide your business direction, that will guide who you service, what niche, what type of service you are going to provide, and who is actually going to lead the process and why you are actually solving that problem in the market. A business plan comes later on. A business plan doesn't come immediately when you start the business, because a business plan's purpose largely is to bring forth investors into your space and to bring forth people that will be able to add value monetarily or value via their networks and partnerships and collaborations. I need experience to get started. Not true at all. We have entrepreneurs that have run businesses from an early age. Remember, everything that you do, for you to get experience, you actually have to jump into that pool. You actually have to jump, and then everything else will follow. Everything else will be at the back following you as you are the leader, making sure that everything falls into place. So you don't necessarily need experience to get started, but experience does help. At the same time, experience does become a bottleneck. So you need to be careful in terms of which faucet experience will actually fall in. Then I'd like to bundle these two together. Everyone can run a business. Not everyone is meant to run a business, because both are actually true. The only way you can know whether you can run a business is to start one and then fail or succeed. Even when you failed, the amount of skills and knowledge, experience, expertise, the number of people you meet, all of those elements, when they conglomerate, it means that within the workspace you'll be able to use those tools and then actually succeed within that space. Then the element of everyone can actually run a business, it can be true in the sense that we don't know until we do it. But at the same time, many businesses need individuals to run the management aspects of the business and to run the different departments that fall within a business. In the beginning, granted, you are everything, you wear all the hats, but these two facts and myths can actually form sort of a parallel lane that you actually run in. So you'll decide whether it's a myth or not. You'll decide whether you are able to run a business or not. And why I say that is because there's a line that Jay-Z presents in one of his songs. He says, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman," indicating that each and every one of us are actually businesses. Why I say that, let me take a simple example. You go to LinkedIn, you put a profile, and what is the aim of doing that? It's for you to sell yourself for a particular purpose. What are you selling? You are selling yourself as a brand. You are selling your capabilities. You are selling your networks. You are selling your strengths. And you're hiding your weaknesses, but you are aware of your threats and the opportunities that come before you or that behold you. So you are a business in your own right. You just have to treat yourself like one. Whether you are unemployed or not, whether you are in retirement or not, everywhere you go and carry yourself, you are a business. You are a professional. You are an expert. All the doctors, all the academics that have presented here today, they are a business. They are representing all the data sets that they've come up with, and they are teaching us a new set of knowledge that we can implement, because they are then the go-tos. Like any other business that niches out into a particular area, they become the go-tos essentially. So you as an individual have to first see yourself as a business for you to actually move forward. But at the same time, you must do things in the correct way. Let's talk business ethics. I made example of graduates. I made example of people that are unemployed. But what about people that are actually working? What about people that are actually pushing an agenda that is not dictated by them, but the corporation, the municipality, or any other boss or entity that is actually working? They can be in business as well. The only difference is that they have to do it right. They have to do it with integrity. And the only way to do it with integrity is to do a risk management and analysis for you to follow. It's for you to know that you must declare your interests. It's for you to know the policies and procedures that are in place. Because some organizations, it's not that they won't allow you to do business, but they just want to be aware. What business are you doing? How will it impact what you're doing for the company that you're actually working for? What value will it add to society? And what threat to our confidential data and information will you actually present? Environmental health has been painted to a large scale as this law enforcement paradigm that we are following. But at the same time, it's a place where opportunity lies. And because opportunity lies there, that's why it has been taken. That's why it has been monopolized. That's why people have strategically entered and used up that space. Areas of specialization. I mean, when you look now at where we are acquiring knowledge, but to what effect? We need to be able to implement it not only in the workplace, not only in our personal lives, but also within a spectrum or sector that we may not have thought of, the avenue of business. So know the policies, know the procedures, know what the expectations are from your employer if you are employed, so that you don't compromise, particularly as in terms of the code of conduct, in terms of the disciplinary procedures, leave management that is in place, but also the poaching of clients, because you have data that gives you an advantage over other businesses because you serve businesses, and therefore your employer wants to know how then are you going to push your business in such a way that it doesn't impact and cause a conflict in any way in terms of your interests, but also the interests of the organization that you're working for. The employer is also interested in terms of the time. How do you manage the time? How do you manage fatigue? Because it's one thing to say you work your 8 hours or whatever the stretch is. Some people work shifts, 12-hour shifts and so on. So it's one thing to manage that, but it's also important to look at how do you manage your rest and how do you create a balanced lifestyle that will not in the long term impact your deliverables, your key performance areas and your key performance indicators within your business. So all of this requires you to solve real problems for the benefit of yourself, but also for the benefit of others. That's what business is. Business encompasses you coming to the fold to say, I will really create value here and I get remunerated for that value. Let me do the same thing on this side. Let me create value on this side. Perhaps I can be profitable. If I'm not, perhaps there could be lessons that I learned that I can then take and transmute it to this section that I'm operating in. So it's to solve real problems in real time and to use up that particular opportunity accordingly. How do you solve those problems? You identify that specific problem, and then you look at yourself as the main asset. Remember, you are the business. So you look at yourself as the main asset. Your skills, your gifts, your talents, your experience, encompass all of that, combine all of that, and then you'll be able to use up opportunities accordingly. One example of doing that is through CETA accreditation training for professionals, like the platform that we are in now. We are all professionals. The majority of people paid for this service, for them to sit there, listen to me and to listen to all the other presenters. They paid for that. It wasn't free. The organization which they paid for that. To do what? To professionally develop us continuously as individuals. So even yourself, you can open a CETA accredited facility. You can open a CETA accredited, you can go the avenue of training people, businesses, and individuals so that they are able to succeed with you in this particular part. Specialized services, you look at SHAC services, occupational health and safety, you look at hygiene services, you look at food safety services. When you look at some of our regulations, there are loopholes that allow an opportunity for you to make money as an individual, but be careful. Go within the ambit of the ethical journey, go within the ambit of integrity and everything else. Then there's the consultation related services. With consultation related services, you go to customers. You go to people and you put forth your skill set and tell them how you're going to solve their problems. As an individual business, the more you study, the more you have opportunities to speak on these types of platforms as a consultant. So, doctor, I forgive you. I didn't invoice you for me speaking here today. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be so lucky. Speaking, teaching, and lecturing, particularly on online platforms. So you look at your social media, your LinkedIn, and so on, and you take that opportunity to ensure that you teach people about environmental health. Doc spoke about YouTube. That's a free platform where you can gain money based on the value that you create to the viewer of the content that you're actually presenting. The reason environmental health is so monopolized is because environmental health practitioners themselves are not at the forefront promoting environmental health, putting it on the map. They are just relying on the cohort of existing platforms, your SAIE, and now this type of forum, workshops, World Environmental Health Day. But are they really utilizing the opportunity to go out there and let people know what is environmental health? And besides the law enforcement and health education aspect, what more can they do? And as individuals, that's what we need to think about. Let me actually give you another tip. You know, non-profit organizations, that is one of the best ways of essentially running a business, because non-profit organizations get funding, non-profit organizations get to serve, but at the same time, the people that are behind the NPOs have to run it financially, economically so. They need it to be lucrative. They need it to do the necessary feasibility studies. They need to keep going, and therefore the funding element can actually help. So as an individual who has a particular passion and you want to give back in a particular way, then ensure that you use a platform like an NPO, because you'll be able to get remunerated for the amount of time you use in the NPO. And as you build it, you give it more exploits, you give it more exposure, then that means more funds will trickle that way. And you have the power and ability to then employ, the power and ability to actually hire more EHPs, and then there can be a trickling effect, lowering the backlog of unemployment within environmental health, lowering the backlog of community service graduates that are just sitting unemployed waiting for their opportunity. You can even go into the space of, if you do have the funds and the capital, purchasing specialized environmental health equipment, then taking them out for hiring. So the opportunities are endless, ladies and gentlemen. Titus right now spoke about the burning challenges that exist, and some of them included recycling. A lot of people, because they are not environmentally savvy or they are not privy to the knowledge around regulations and so on, you as an EHP actually are. I know EHPs that are in the space of plastic recycling, for example, and they are able to run efficient businesses that do not have a negative impact on the environment, and therefore government benefits because there's that integration, but also the business owner as well benefits. Then after all of that, once you've had an impact on environmental health specifically, that's when you can then move into the passive element of making money and going into business. The priority here is for me to emphasize, as environmental health practitioners, how do we play in the economic scale of the country and the world? How do we make South Africa better through playing our part in business, not only from the public sector? How do we create public-private partnership? Because we already have the tools for us to succeed. These 3 years, now 4 years, the degree, it's extensive. Personally, I know it's extensive. And based on that, the amount of experience and time spent on these students, it becomes worth it for them. There are many environments that are built into the business landscape. But if you look at these environments, you can see that there's a strong cohesion as far as the government space is concerned. So you look at the economic environment, no government can run without finances. That's why the cost of wages in government is higher than any other cost that actually exists within government. Politics runs government. The legal aspects, Titus now was touching a lot on the legal aspects. The social and cultural environment, the NPO example, but also examples around the societal contribution and impact that EHPs have on a day-to-day as they deal with individuals. Technological environment. What type of technological advancements can EHPs create so that the system is improved? What type of technological advancements can EHPs bring to actually enhance what is there for the government aspect to actually thrive? Another important thing is the ethics element of it, the educational environment aspect, and globally, we are not isolated. We don't live in silos, and we know that on a global scale, we need to give back so that this percentage of businesses that fail can actually go down just a tad, just a little bit, and then there'll be that positive contribution. So how do we integrate government, and how do we then integrate business so that they work together? Because they need each other. They need each other. Government needs business and vice versa. A lot of the data that we have now from the presenters this week is research data. This research data allows us to create systems that can be used by government to improve how government is actually working. A lot of political parties are coming with a strategy of doing away with the tender system. But the truth is, with the capacity already existing and the wage bill being so high, the tender system is here to stay for a very long time. And therefore, through the tender system, how do we as EHPs penetrate that particular gap and penetrate that particular market so that government benefits from our resources? Because EHPs within the scope and within the employment of government, they have already specific functions that they need to do, and going beyond that can be a deterrent regarding what they're actually there to do. So technology, I've already touched on it when I spoke about the technological environment. How do we bring about technological advances that will bring the necessary change within government? And of course, legal exploits and policy influence. We already know. We are not naive to the fact that business in the bigger scale of things is what runs the country. It's what runs the economy. Some call it conspiracy theory, but it's not. Because we saw during COVID, for example, what happened to interest rates, to inflation, how the market was affected because businesses were not operating. Now, wearing the hat of environmental health, of course, I understand that it was necessary, but we do have to open our minds into saying business plays a key role. And as environmental health practitioners, are we going to stand up and be part of that government integration that is actually needed? So in other words, imagine if all of this was done by environmental health practitioners, or at least the vast majority as it pertains to the function of environmental health practitioners. So let's go now through a quick crash course of, if I don't have a business, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I start? Because it's one thing to know the why environmental health practitioners should be involved in the process, but it's another to actually know how. And the how in this case is very important. The how starts with you've already figured out that there's a problem that you are solving. Now register the company, make a small payment into the CIPC, which governs companies within the country. Then have 5 options in terms of the names of your company. It's called the name reservation process, which they charge, I think, 25 Rand from the amount that you would have already deposited into the CIPC. Then the top name will then be chosen if it's not currently existing. If it is existing, then they'll just scale it down and take the subsequent name based on that chronological order of how you chose your first preference for the name that you are choosing. Then you register with SARS. I mean, next to God, SARS, it's the next powerhouse. So you don't want a mistake as far as SARS is concerned. You register for income tax, you register for unemployment insurance fund for the people that you'll be hiring. And then at a later stage, once your business earns R1 million plus in 1 year cycle, then you'll be registered for VAT. Then you open your business account, go to the bank, look at the business options that you have for opening that account, because some of them bring about free services that will actually help you. And I'll expand more on that in the next slide. Then set up a website, because immediately when I, as a professional, refer you another professional to you for a particular service, then it is the website that will be telling the story. It is social media marketing through LinkedIn that will be telling the story. You won't be there to tell your own story, and I can't sell you as someone referring someone to you. I can't sell you the way your website will. Put evidence, put testimonials, put accreditations, affiliations, and registered associations. So I'm registered with HPCSA. I'm also registered with SAYO. Those type of examples. I'm affiliated to this institution and that institution. Those type of examples. Then other aspects will be your accounting and legal. I said I'll touch on those briefly. The bank account that you actually choose, some of them actually assist you with this particular aspect. So use the advantages that come with the business account. Don't just pay the account and you're not really receiving value for that. Then other aspects that you need to look at is your policies, your legal compliance, like for example with health and safety. You need to ensure that everything is in order, including COIDA, so that whenever there's injury on duty or any other aspects like that, you are covered. Environmental compliance is key. You're already experts. You know the legislation. Why not take advantage of that? Especially if you are sitting at home doing nothing. Here's an opportunity. You already know what customers want because you have the experience of interacting with community members on a regular basis. So why not actually go that route of business and employing people and actually starting? The name of my YouTube channel at Dog is It Starts With You, Network with Less. So getting started, I had to throw that name drop a bit. Then of course, key points to note. Business is a risk and risk is business. High risk, high reward, but also high risk, you can get nothing from it. In business, however, in as much as it's a risk, if you go all in, the number of lessons that you take from there, you can actually bring forth to the workplace. They empower you to that extent that in the workplace, the amount of value that you can provide. Because as someone who started a business and wore all the hats, you are able to deal with HR issues, you are able to deal with economics and financial management issues, you are able to deal with accounting issues, you are able to deal with SARS and tax issues, and all of those aspects become positive for you in the long run. You're already equipped to do it from tertiary level up to the workplace because of how extensive environmental health is and also how wide an opportunity actually exists for you. Your qualification is an advantage. Environmental health is niche. They try to create all of these various specializations, but take those specializations and use them to your advantage because you already have the expertise. Then study to emulate. In other words, with all this data that you are getting here, if you've been sleeping on the idea of a particular business, make sure that you've learned enough to grasp and then start your business, and then look at all the people that are doing the business that you actually want and start off by copying what they're doing as a means of flattering them, but you know the overarching goal that you actually have so that you succeed in the long run. So copy and paste if you have to. The only proviso or caveat here is that you must have your USP, your unique selling proposition. What makes you unique from the other person? What makes you special? What value are you actually bringing that will distinguish or differentiate you from the next person? Know which hat to wear. In other words, when you are recruiting people for your business, forget empathy. It goes out the door. What you have to do is ensure that the person who's coming is fit for the post that they'll be occupying. Isn't it all of us, whether you are employed by the municipality, province, national, by higher institutions of learning, they look at your competence, your capacity, and what value you are bringing. So even from business, know which hat to wear. When you have a certain strategic goal that you are aiming for from a financial standpoint, wear that hat that deals with finances so that your business can have a rollover effect and not die because you didn't manage the finance aspect of your business accordingly. Of course, build necessary partnerships with government, with other businesses. When you are starting out, go to businesses owned by people that you know and ensure that you can learn as much as you can from them. Help them in some way or another, create value for them so that when they mentor you, they do it with an open heart and allow you to actually prosper. Partner with them, have joint ventures with them, bring things to the table, solutions for their business, and then you can grow together. Another myth that we could have touched on is that business is strictly competition and nothing else. When we are starting out on this type of playing field that we are on, where environmental health practitioners don't own businesses, unfortunately, then we need to push each other. Let's compete once it's Apple and Microsoft, and then we are big conglomerates whereby we still profit and we still become people that add value in the overall landscape of the global stage. Then turn failures into great learning opportunities. As I said, even though the stats are so dire around businesses, ensure that you turn those failures into great learning opportunities, bring them back. So whoever is encouraged enough to start their business and it happens to fail, in 2 years' time, when Dr. Libelo does host such a platform or forum again, come back and ask to present on this particular topic and share so that people who actually join you in this route will be able to enhance the journey of the next EHP who's going the entrepreneurial route. And then important more than anything is that we must count our blessings. Let's be real. If you are employed with the current unemployment state, count your blessings. Then bring value to your employer. If you are not, count your blessings for whatever else because it means the future is still ripe and rich for you to take advantage of it in one way or another. Something happened. Oh, yes. Then, in conclusion, oh, load shedding. Can I carry on, Doc? Okay, awesome. So, essentially, as I conclude, whether you start a business or not is not as relevant as what you can acquire from actually starting the business and the amount of value that you can bring back to your employer. So the prowess, the business acumen that you build up, all of those things, the emotional intelligence, the type of networks that you build, your leadership capabilities, these are essential skills as highlighted by Harvard Business School. So we can't even take them for granted. Your financial management on a personal scale, because let's be honest, hey, life is trapping us, guys. From a financial perspective, if we're not managing what we are getting, what do we think will actually change? So business management is life management, is management in the workplace. And when you integrate all of them together, then there's that positive output that is necessary for growth and development. I tried to basically take the tire, put it on the tar and drive this Lamborghini. But it was so heavy that I didn't finish in the 20 minutes that I actually planned because there are so many of you on board. But I appreciate the opportunity, Doc, and I'm still around for questions if there are any. Thank you. That would be awesome. Yes.